Quite welcome. Thanks for having me. My goal this evening would be to really see some faces instead of names, but if you're shy, I understand, but I really would like to talk to faces instead of my PowerPoint, but we'll see how it goes. Sensational rooms on a budget. My goal is using what you already have. Now, here's what happens. We don't think about our rooms. We just walk in them, come home, same old, same old. And I think what's happened to a lot of us in this past 18 months is that we've started noticing things in our house that are starting to bug us, or things that are looking tired. So I want to help you get the home you want with the house you actually have. Some of the photos in this presentation are actual client homes. Some I've had to borrow just to use for educational purposes. But feel free to raise your hand if you know how, using the toolbar. If not, just unmute yourself and throw out your questions. This was a wonderful quote that I read in 2003 in House Beautiful magazine. And Oscar de la Renta is a famous designer. And he said, an interior should be a reflection of the people who live in it. It should never be only the stamp of a decorator. And I found that very profound coming from a designer. Usually they put their mark on the room. They have a certain style. But your home should be original. Your furnishings are what's there to tell your story, who you are, where you've been, what you love, and not somebody else's. I've been in many homes and have asked questions about a room, and I would get the response, I don't know, my decorator told me I needed it. Well, to me, that is awful to not have a story in your room. But I get these excuses all the time. My home is well decorated, but it doesn't feel comfortable. And then there's always the room we never use, like the living room. You know, it's almost put the velvet rope up and call it a day. Some people say my home's too small. I don't have anything to work with. I don't have any money. Well, then this webinar is for you, because we're going to try and do some things without any money. Some people say they rearrange their furniture, but they can't get it right. And I'm going to give you a reason why that happens. And then there's people that just keep buying more and more things. You know, Home Goods is such a tempting place, and TJ Maxx and Marshalls. And they buy things, bring them home, and doesn't help. They don't know where to put it. So this concept of using what you own decorating, if you think about it, it's really green decorating, because we're not throwing sofas in landfills or, you know, taking lamps that don't have a lampshade and just throwing them in the garbage. I want you to look at your home, not only for what you have in it, but to think out of the box as to what something could be. The goal is to save you money. Most people, when you say the word designer or decorator, they see dollar signs flying out of their pocket. You don't have to do that. Keep in mind, your home is not the one in the magazine. And I want you to start taking a closer look at your magazines. Most of those photographs are cropped and photoshopped, and things are moved closer together to get all of the product in the image. But look at them more closely. Can you walk in that room? Is there a place to put down a glass? Is there a TV? You look in the design magazines, most times there is no television. But it's a great place to start. And I usually suggest to my clients, if they don't know what their style is to start ripping things out of magazines. Don't look at it for a long time. Just glance at it, and if you like it, rip it out, put it in a folder. Same thing goes with color. And don't necessarily have to use a decorating magazine to decide what colors you gravitate to. Any magazine works. Just rip it out. You're going to recycle the rest of the magazine, so you might as well take out the good parts. Now there's styles, right? This is from Pinterest. All these pins for all these styles. Well, I don't know if you want to call yours anything. I happen to use the term transitional. Transitional is my personal style. And I think it's because it's going somewhere, but I don't know quite where yet. And not all of my rooms, you know, follow the same pattern of a style. Everything in my room either tells a story or means something to me, or it's something I really like, whether it's trendy or not. So we have things we can afford. And I have no qualms with people saying, I can't afford to buy anything. Actually, those are my favorite clients, because let's reinvent the wheel and see what you have. Some people have inherited furnishings, and the youth today don't want our old furniture for whatever reason. It's better made, but they'll go to IKEA and buy, the put together kind that doesn't really hold up. Here's an example of secondhand furniture. My client's mother, when she moved into her townhouse, made her this generous offer of giving her the 2 sofas from her house. Now, when your mother gives you the sofas, you can't not use them, because then there's always that argument or that underlying tension. So she called and she said, I don't know what to do. She said, I bought a really beautiful chair, but my mother gave me these sofas and now I have to use them. Well, we redid the room, and her purchase was the chair that you see in the bottom left. The prettiest sofa is the one you see when you walk in the room, but the other one is still in there. It's just to the right, kind of behind that coffee table. So it's not the first thing you see. Sometimes you can't afford to do things like put new flooring in your house or even repaint, but you still have to have a focal point in your house. And even if you have to take things from another room to put in, say, take something from your living room and put it in your family room to create a focal point, you'll be surprised how much you'll notice it once it's in a different room. This person went and bought the room for, whatever it was, $12.99, a whole room of furniture. Well, as you can see, it all matches. It includes the pillows. This is her living room. It doesn't do anything for anybody. So when I was there, I said, why did you buy a chaise lounge? She said, I always wanted one. I always wanted to lay in a chaise lounge and read. And I said, well, that will be difficult in this room because you don't have a lamp. She said, that's right. So we worked together, and this is what we did. We took the chaise out of that room, put it in the family room where she could use it. And now we have a room that welcomes you. We can now come into this room. There is a little bit more light. We still need another lamp or so, but we put a piece of art on the wall to give it a focal point. And since the pillows had all that burgundy in it, she had these Texas stars throughout her house. She was from Dallas. And so we incorporated those into her room. Some people get so confused, they just do nothing, or it's too overwhelming, or where do you start? And I have no plan. So, I'm just going to not do anything, just complain about it. Well, a lot of rooms do have challenges. And I always say I'd love to get a builder in a room and architects in a room and lock the door and smack them around, literally, because they don't think about how people live. Here's an example. The builder put the cable connection on the wall where you see the television set. Makes no sense. And so when I approached the client and I said, well, that could be moved. He said, well, I called the cable company and they couldn't do it. And so sort of jokingly, I said to him, was your cable guy kind of overweight? And he went, yeah, as a matter of fact, he was pretty heavy. I said, that's why I said he can't do it. He doesn't want to crawl in your crawl space, but it can be done. So he called the cable company again and insisted that somebody come and move the cable. Here's what a difference it made. Now the television isn't the first thing you see when you walk in the room. It's kind of tucked away in a corner. True, it's over a window because builders don't think things through. But there's a beautiful room that you see first, and the TV is in the background. Now, I don't know what the builder was thinking here, but I think it was like, oh, shoot, we forgot to put in a fireplace. Well, we'll just stick it in the corner. So they did. Now, I do appreciate the beautiful floor, the way they laid it, because it kind of mimics the angle of the fireplace. But where this picture is being taken, this piece of granite you see at the very bottom, that is the little shelf above the kitchen sink. It's not a wide enough area to put breakfast stools or anything. It's just risen maybe 6 inches so you can't actually see the sink. So underneath it is a love seat. So we moved all of it away from the counter, and we created a space, although smaller, in front of the fireplace. But when you think about it, what was going to happen in this great big open space? Nothing. And here's that love seat smashed up against this wall. Now it's all moved away. You can easily get to the office, which is right here. You can walk behind these to get into the kitchen. And now you have a conversation TV viewing area that's not going to be interrupted by somebody walking through the room. Use what you have decorating is going to reflect your personality. And it's interesting when you move things from a one room to another, or even take down all the art and put it in different places, it starts to look new again. One year for Christmas, I decided I was going to unpack my decorations and I was not going to put them in the same place again. And I did. I moved, nothing was in the same place except the Christmas tree. And when my kids came home, the first thing they were saying was, when did we get that? Didn't we always have that thing? Because it was always in the same place. They didn't see it anymore. So where do we start? Well, eliminate. Now we've all had, the organizing guru out there telling us if it doesn't bring you joy, to get rid of it. Well, a lot of things bring me joy. They might not work in my room, but they still bring me joy. So I'm not just going to throw things away. But go through your room, and if there's something that you've looked at for a long time and I'm like, gee, I really don't like that, that's what you give away. Go through the room, take out all the things that aren't appealing to you. And then before you buy anything, I want you to try moving around your own furniture. Now, the reason a lot of people say they can't do that is because they don't take enough stuff out of the room to even have space to move the furniture. And think about repurposing the furniture. Think of all the things a sofa table could be. Just because it says sofa does not mean it has to be behind a sofa. It could be in the entry hall. It could be used as a computer desk in a living room. We're all working from home more now, and maybe there's not a designated office space, but a sofa table in the living room with a laptop on it could be very, very efficient. Now, this was a real on the budget makeover. My client called me, it was a man, and he called me and he said, I want to redo the family room for my wife for her 40th birthday. And so I came out and we scheduled an appointment. And I said, well, let's start off first by me telling you I will not do that. He said, then why are you here? I said, you can't redo a room in your home for your wife without her having some participation. Because in essence, you're telling her she can't do it. I said, so we're not going to do that, but you give me a budget and we'll make enough changes that it'll be a surprise. Well, it was a total surprise because he told me later that she came in and stood there for about 20 minutes with her hands on her hips, just glaring at this room with not a smile on her face, until she realized after about 20 minutes, this was her sofa, merely covered with a 3-piece slipcover. Added a few more lamps, added some accessories, totally different room. But I want you to think about breaking the rules. I mean, there's magazines that pound the trends into you, like the grays, which, by the way, are going away. But break the rules. Everything doesn't have to match. Go for some wow. I mean, this crazy rug, it's really interesting, right? Your eye goes to the rug, but your eye also goes to this lovely lime green wall. It's a simple area rug and a very cheap accent wall. We get tunnel vision because we don't see anything anymore. And so this is why moving your furniture is such a huge event in most people's lives. This room is a typical living room. I live in Naperville. This is a typical living room. Beyond that doorway, there's the dining room. And of course, we all had, decorators or designers or read a couple books, and it says, put the largest piece of furniture on the largest wall. Bam, the sofa's on the largest wall. However, there's a love seat and two wingback chairs to deal with. Where do they go? All up against the wall. And whatever happens in the middle of this floor, I have no idea. I mean, maybe she teaches yoga, but who knows? But the room doesn't work because if you're in here trying to have a conversation, you can't. You're screaming at one another. Moving the furniture off the wall changes the whole look of this room. It doesn't look long and narrow anymore because we created a conversation section in the middle. What you can't see, which is as you first walk in and look to your left, is a piano. So the piano stayed in its place. So now we have a piano area, we have a conversation area, and then we have another seating area if you want to get away from everybody and just read a book or balance your checkbook away from everybody. Now this one I did via Zoom, so it was kind of interesting, but the woman moved from, she was divorced, she moved from her house into this townhome and nothing fit. And if you notice my really squiggly red line, look at how many pieces of furniture are technically outside the room. The wingback chair, part of the ottoman, part of the table are all within the eating area. That's not working. Now it's all in the room. True, it's still a lot of furniture, but these are all things she brought with her that she liked, and so it had to be in the room. But now it's all in this room, not hanging out into the eating area. Placement, placement, placement. That's what it's all about. Placing the furniture to work for how you use the room, even more important than how it looks on a floor plan, is how you use it, is going to create the flow and the harmony that you need in the room. Functional, inviting spaces. Pull the furniture away from the wall. Floating furniture in a room creates these conversation groupings. It gives the room a little more dimension. And in a lot of the homes that I see in Naperville, it's a long, thin family room or a long rectangle living room, which makes it very difficult to think about having a nice conversation. This living room's not that long, but it's very typical. The largest piece of furniture is on the largest wall. But I also want you to notice how many lamps are in this room. One, this little blue one. So when I asked her how she uses the room, she said, oh, we don't go in there much. It's too dark at night. Well, of course it is, because there's no lamps. We added some lamps. There's one, two, and there's one on the other side of the room on a sofa table. And we moved the furniture away from the wall. We added another interesting piece of art that she had elsewhere. And so that's the focus point. Now people will come into this room and actually sit. Any questions yet? Raise your hand, scream and shout. No? Now, I really love this room because A, there's no television, and B, it's very classic and traditional. And because there's no television, we didn't have to deal with everybody seeing the TV. So we created a conversation area. But something I noticed in her dining room was this beautiful buffet. And the buffet couldn't be seen because it's the same height as the dining room table. So it basically disappeared. And yet it's a beautiful piece of furniture. So I wanted to incorporate it in this room. But what's interesting is if you sit in either of these chairs and you look into this mirror to the right, you see this piece of art over the mantel. So it's like every seat in this room has a beautiful view and a beautiful focal point. Sometimes we move, right? And we're in a new house and it's a totally different floor plan. And our immediate instinct is, oh my gosh, we're going to have to buy new furniture. Well, sure, if that's a luxury you can afford, but in most cases it isn't. And my advice is always to wait to see how you need to have the room function, for who, how many, what time of day, what you use it for, before you go out and buy anything. Because if you have a 103-inch long red sofa and you go out and you buy a 103-inch long blue sofa, it's not going to make much difference in how it works in the room because it's too big. Here's an example. This is a townhouse, and they moved from a larger house. And so this enormous sectional was in their family room. So if it was in their family room, it has to go in their family room. Well, obviously it doesn't fit. And back to my original point about builders not thinking things through, is there's nowhere in this family room to put a television, unless it's over the fireplace. Not my favorite location. And if we have time, if you ask me the question, I'll explain it to you. Here's her living room, and here's the back of the TV. Now, this furniture is very crowded in here, and so is the other room. But there's no law that says you can't take a sectional sofa apart. And there's no rule that says if it's been in the living room, it has to stay in the living room. So now here's the family room. Now, we don't quite yet know where the TV is going to end up, but there are some possibilities. It could end up to the right where this table is. And that way you wouldn't necessarily see it coming into the room, but they hadn't yet determined that. The living room, if you notice, we took the sectional apart. And we took that corner, huge corner piece, and we put it upstairs in the master suite. And now it's a seating area. And we scaled down the living room so you can actually walk through it. We all have, well, I don't know if we all have dining rooms, but I have a dining room that in my first house was so crowded that if I had company, I was cringing because somebody was going to bang their chair up against my china hutch or bang their chair up against the wall. And yet it's the room where the most people are going to congregate. So why are builders making it the small room next to the living room? This is a large family and they just didn't fit. And so they had the kids' table, the kids' table and the adults' table. So I said, well, why don't we just make your living room your dining room? And of course, eyebrows went up because, but it's the living room. This is the living room. I asked her what she did with it, and she said the kids do homework in the computer armoire, the armoire that's on the right. She said, and I sit in the love seat and read to the little one while they do their homework. I said, so what happens back here? And all these lamps weren't there the first time I was there. So what happens back here? She said, nothing. Nobody ever uses that sofa. Why is it there? Now this room has become her dining room. She can put another extension in this table and it'll seat 12 people, 14 if she gets some smaller chairs. That's huge. And the dining room has now become the homework room. Here's the computer desk. Now everybody says, well, the chandelier, you're going to hit your head. You cannot hit your head. It's over the coffee table. And if you think you'd still hit your head, you can always hook it up a little higher. Spend your money wisely, because if you make strategic purchases like that slipcover I showed you a few slides ago, it can make a big impact. And things like lamps and pillows and area rugs, although, they seem expensive, but a lot of online stores sell reasonably priced area rugs. And all those small things can change the look of a room. This was a bachelor. Of course, he bought all the white leather pieces. And then his mother gave him these tables, and his dad told him to take the TV. Can't get rid of these unless you take them out in your yard and beat the heck out of them and break them into pieces, and then maybe somebody will pick them up. So the TV was going to disappear. But he said, this room just is boring. He said, I painted the walls. I thought that would help, but it didn't. So I took him shopping. And he got these two lamps at a garage sale, and we added new lampshades. But we found this great piece of art that matched the existing pillows that he had on a bed with the palm trees in it. See the palm tree here and the palm tree here. So we added some color. And we also moved things closer so now everyone can still see the television set when it gets smaller. Here's that birthday room again. And this one piece of furniture we borrowed from the first floor mother-in-law's room. And we also used this sofa table in her front hallway. So here's the finished room with the borrowed chair from the other room. A little bit of art, a few more accessories, adding some life to the room by bringing some plant life in, makes the room inviting. So move some furniture. You have nothing to lose. It's not costing you any money. You know, have a couple girlfriends over, have a girls' night, have a couple glasses of wine. You'd be surprised how creative you can be in moving furniture. But first you have to decide what's the purpose of this room and who uses it and what time of the day. And does it need to have more function? Access the room from each corner. And what's wonderful about cell phones now is you can take photographs of your rooms. And it's amazing what your phone sees that you don't. Because as humans, we just edit things. But when your camera can't edit. So when you take a picture of your room, your phone is going to tell you what's out of place or what doesn't look right. So we want to start by purging. And what I mean by purging is if you're going to rearrange your furniture, you have to take out enough stuff that all that's left are the big pieces of furniture. So in that case, you can move them around. And it also helps you forget the way it used to look. So if you take out the end tables and the lamps and take down the artwork and all the accessories and just put them in another room and only work with the big pieces of furniture and see what happens. We all need to have a focal point. So in some houses, it's the fireplace. But in some houses, there's a fireplace, but the function of that room is television watching. So then you have to create something to draw your attention to the fireplace without having everyone sit and stare at the fireplace and not be able to see the TV. Emphasize the accessories and the artwork. It makes a huge change in a room. And I'm talking artwork that's a little bigger than 12 by 16. And lighting is the key. A room only looks dark if it doesn't have enough electricity. People will say to me, well, I can't paint the room dark because it won't get enough light. Well, a dark room is a dark room until you turn the lights on. And then it's a very dramatic room instead of just a dark room. Many times we just have too many square things in a room, squares and rectangles, and there's no softness. So try and incorporate something that's curved, maybe add a round table, maybe add a round mirror, something that will give it some softness. And maybe just take out a couple pieces of furniture that have no purpose and you haven't used. This room functions, right? There's a piano, there's a drum set, there's a fireplace, there's no television. This is the living room, but it's chaotic. And there's this big sectional sofa kind of dividing the room, and it just made no sense. So it was rearranged, and now the piano and the drum set are both on that side of the room, and the sectional now faces the beautiful fireplace. Now I have to point out, if I can go back, it's not hard to get back, is it? No, I have to just move this. If I go back, you will see, no, it's not going to let me. The piano was turned around the other way so that the bench was closer to the wall. That's where the piano should be. But when the floors were refinished, the guys that did the floors brought the piano back in and placed it this way. A baby grand piano, when the lid is up, the music should come into the room. And the person playing the piano should be able to see the room. Quite different if it's an upright. Dance with your furniture. You know, put on some music. What do you have to lose? Just see what happens. This is a lovely room. There's nothing wrong with this room. But my client decided she was going to spin it around a bit. And what I noticed was these beautiful wicker chairs. When you see them from the back, they're much more attractive than the back of this soft pillow chair. And just because it's always been there, it doesn't have to stay there. Sectionals are allowed to come apart. Wall units, the great big wall units that we had with the TV in the middle and the bookcases on the side, you don't have to throw those away. Repurpose them. Put the two bookcases together. Make a library area. Take that armoire, put it in one of the kids' bedrooms, and use it as storage for toys. Think about what those pieces could be used in another room. This room is very busy, and this sectional sofa basically is saying you can't come in here. You can't get past here. Turning it just slightly and opening it up gives it a much softer feeling. Now, this homeowner thought the sectional sofa was going to solve all her problems because there'd be seating for everybody. Well, the problem is right over here to the left where this white cabinet is, that's the television. Obviously, this chair and ottoman is command central, the guy with the remote or girl. Sometimes it's the girl with the remote. But then the family is sitting over here and they can't see the TV. Pull the sectional apart. Now we have a sofa, a love seat, and the chaise lounge is over here with the big cushy chair. So we have a conversation area, but everybody except the person in this purple lounge can see the television. And I'm told that her husband now sits on the love seat and lays on the love seat. So he doesn't even miss his overstuffed chair. Here's a better view. All these people, and yet these people could have a conversation while the other people are watching that football game. Here's another example. If you really look at a sectional sofa and think it through, how many people are actually going to sit on this sofa? Now, unless you have a family that loves to just cuddle, not many people will sit here. Someone will sit here, someone might sit here, but nobody's going to sit here and touch knees with that person. And then somebody might sit here, and maybe somebody will sit on the end here. So it hasn't solved your problem. This sectional is blocking the door. And just because it's on a 90-degree angle doesn't mean it has to sit in a 90-degree angle. There's this great big space in the middle doing nothing. So rotate it. Bring it into the room instead of having this dance floor. We didn't lose any space. We just are using it better. Don't skimp on your lamps. Ideal number is 3. And that means spread around the room, not your sofa, 2 end tables, 2 lamps, and no other lamp in the room. Add that 3rd lamp. It's amazing what it'll do. And lamps aren't that expensive. A lot of times people think they don't have any lamps because they say they're broken. Most broken lamps really just need a lampshade and a new finial or a new harp. Easy things to find. How many lamps are in this room? 1. This teeny little white lamp here in the corner. Now how many? 1, 2, 3, and there's a 4th one over here. It's a floor lamp. If you have ceiling lights, now builders tend to put can lights down the middle of the room. Not necessarily functional, it's just like creating an operating room. But try, if you can, with some of these ceiling lights, if they're the kind that are adjustable, that you could put aim them towards a piece of art or aim them towards a window treatment. You can also change your lampshades, which can change the entire look of a lamp. Here's what we created in the back part of this room. Now there's a table coming for in here. So now we created this nice little conversation area. Her can lights we redirected to shine on this piece of art. And there's 2 that shine on this hand-painted mural that a friend did. I said, if you ever move, you better have somebody cut that drywall out so you can take it with you. Speaking of walls, what do you put on them? Anything you want to. Now there's trends and there's, styles, and we've gone, the farmhouse look, and we've gone the early American look with all the cute ducks and bunnies and things, but use what you like to look at. Look at all these things you could hang on your wall. Shutters, windows, baskets aren't so in anymore. And I've noticed years ago when I had some baskets on the wall, all they did was collect dust. And so I don't think they're the best alternative. This client created this in a craft class, and it was in her basement. And I said, that's really pretty. Why is it in your basement? Well, I just did it at craft class. It's not worth putting on the wall. Give it a shot. Put it on the wall. Everybody comes into her house and comments on it. A lot of us have accessories that are all the same size, small, and no surfaces. There's not even a coffee table. There's an ottoman. So the solution was to put shelves on the wall. And if you notice, the shelves are staggered. Two reasons. One, it was easier. I didn't have to do quite as much measuring. But two, it allowed for some three-dimensional look. So you could hang some artwork, you could place some artwork on the shelves. And anytime she wants to, she can take all of this down and change it. Now, one of my students sent me this, and I thought it was amazing. She bought all these frames at a garage sale and flea market, and she painted them all the same color. But what's interesting to me is she hung this little brass bird up here. So it's that little tiny thing that makes you go, look at that, how clever. Can spray paint does wonders. My goddaughter made these. She's a teacher and she has one of those Cricut machines. And so she just took burlap in an old picture frame and she put these quotes on it. Now, I really like this one. It's in her powder room and it says, if at first you don't succeed, flush, flush again. This is her entryway. She loves old windows, and so she collected them all. And when I was visiting, I didn't tell her that this one was crooked because knowing my goddaughter, she would have got the ladder that very minute and she'd got up there and straightened it. And I didn't want to see her fall down the stairs, so I didn't mention it. Even antique plates. This is a little guest room. Nice antique bed. Why not add the plates? Now, one of the things we, oftentimes don't think through is where to hang a mirror and where to hang artwork. Artwork should connect to the furniture. And if you're in a room where you sit, you should be able to see the artwork while you're sitting down. If it's an area of your house that you walk through, like your entryway or your hallway upstairs, that artwork can be hung a little higher. This is out of a magazine. Now, if we were all open and sitting in a classroom, I would ask you what you thought of this. But you're all so shy, apparently, that I'll tell you what I thought of it. I thought it was awful. There's a staircase, I think. I can only assume that that's what's back there, or it's just a pitched wall with a darkened ceiling. But this artwork, even though it's a nice form that it's hung in, is floating in the air. It's not connected at all to the furniture. I bet a client, he told me you can't put art that low because you'll hit your head. And I bet him $50 if he could sit on the sofa, not this particular sofa, but if he could sit on the sofa and manage to hit his head. And he took me up on the bet. And other than if he had a seizure, he probably could not make his head hit the wall in the artwork. Make sure the art's proportioned to your space. Don't take a great big 12-foot long wall and hang one piece of art in the middle of it, especially if it's a small piece. And when you're hanging art, choose pieces that relate to the wall and the furnishings. But just because there's a wall, that doesn't mean there has to be art on it, because we all need a place to just chill. We need a place for our eye to take a rest. So here's the rule. Your artwork should be 2/3 to 3/4 of the width of the furniture. So like on your sofa, you don't want it hanging over the edge of your sofa. This client she was a young woman, but she collected all this shabby chic things. And she had all this amazing art and plates. And so we created this formation of art, which makes it much more interesting than if it was just a picture here, a picture here, and a picture on another wall. Grouping them together makes a huge statement. Too many things on the wall. And a lot of those are family photos, and they're so tiny you have to walk up to them. There's just too much. And so doing a little editing and putting some large pieces on the wall and editing out some of the smaller ones, the room seems much more calm. In fact, most of your kids aren't going to like their pictures on the wall anymore. My son came home this last year and got stuck here because of COVID. And he kept saying to me, Mom, please take that picture of me off the wall in the hallway. And I said, why? And he said, because I hate walking by it. Yeah, I had hair then, and I don't like looking at it anymore. I said, well, you don't live here, so it stays. See, this doesn't feel right. There's these big pieces of art. Big pieces of art are great, but they're too far apart, and they just don't go with the room at all. But if you really like them, I would hang them, but I'd put them really close together, maybe 3 inches apart. This looks a little more calm. You don't have to put a piece on it. If it's a wall that's blank, it's just fine. Layering it, putting it on a shelf, keeps a lot of holes from going in the wall. Pottery Barn, not a commercial, but Pottery Barn makes great shelves that are really easy to hang. You don't want to hang anything higher than a piece of millwork, like a door jamb or a window. You want to try to put them in groups and have some blank spaces. This is out of a magazine, and what I loved about this is a boring wall. You walk down the hallway, you see a door and a blank wall. So this is stacked on this wall, but take a peek inside this room. It's stacked in the room when the door's open. So it's like drawing you in. Come in and see the rest of this collection. If you have a house with a pitched ceiling, you want to follow that pitched ceiling. This client had probably 40 of these. I can't remember the author, the artist, but she wanted as many hung as possible. Well, you can't just throw them on the wall just to get rid of them. So you have to be a little bit strategic. So one is hung here, right below the light switch, that when you sit in the chairs, you can see it. And she didn't have any dogs or kids, so we were able to hang one on the stairway. I'm going back to that same thing I said 3 times. Just because there's a wall, you don't have to have anything on it. Grouping all these small pieces together, which are all photographs that the client took of flowers, grouping them all together now makes a huge statement. And look how colorful and interesting it is. But it has to be something you want to look at. I would never go and purchase artwork for a client, because what I like in artwork might not be what they want to look at for the next 10 or 15 years. So pick art that you gravitate towards. And even if you have art that's old, and in the 80s and early 90s, people used to mat their art to match their wallpaper. Well, you can remat that piece of art. Take away that mauve matting or that light blue matting and mat it in white. Changes the look of the picture and makes it all look new again. And try to mimic what's in the artwork and make it 3-dimensional. I'll give you a couple of examples. Picture of pottery. She collected pottery. So why not put the pottery near the artwork? It becomes 3-dimensional and much more interesting. One of my students sent me this one, and I had to call her on the phone because I was so excited. And I said, did you paint that bicycle to match that piece of art? And she said, no, I found it hanging upside down in the back of their garage. But how perfect, mimicking the piece of art by adding the bicycle. Mirrors, caution. Mirrors reflect some things they probably shouldn't reflect. 2 magazine photos. The one on the left, I don't know what, this description up here, this little print talks about this bookcase with chicken wire in it instead of glass. Makes no comment about this mirror, but there's this great big mirror sitting on this white fireplace, and all you see is the ceiling. It has no purpose. The other one was actually an advertisement for a mirror, but all you see are the very tops of the flowers. Now, if that mirror were just turned vertically, it would make quite a statement, and you would see 2 bouquets of flowers instead of just the tops of one. I know it's hard to hold a mirror up and look in it to see what it sees, because there you are with your face is, huge. And if you can look past your face and see what's behind you, that's what you want. You want something pleasing that the mirror is going to reflect. And a word of caution, mirrors are usually very heavy, so you don't hang them with a wire. They have hooks on the back, they're called D-rings, and that's what they're supposed to be hung on. 2 hooks, not a wire. This is a huge mirror. It's about 6 feet by 3 feet. It took 4 people to lift it. It's hung on 2 hooks because it's hung correctly on the D-rings. But it reflects the chandelier. It's reflecting a collection of photographs on the other side of the room. And in this case, it's reflecting the other side of the room. So it actually serves as a piece of art. Here we have another one. This is the centerpiece and the dining room table and the chandelier. Now you see it twice. And this lamp overlaps this mirror, but it's not a big deal because it's not blocking anything. Here's one where just turn the mirror vertically instead of horizontally. It gives it a whole new feeling. Here's another example of the mirror not seeing anything pretty. It was an antique mirror of her grandmother's, and it was the old kind of mirrors that have the mercury that kind of crackles in the back. So it was a very interesting mirror. But what's it reflecting? The ceiling fan. Now picture yourself sitting in this room and the fan is on. So you're seeing the fan in the room going clockwise, and the fan in the mirror is going counterclockwise. Not very pleasant. She wanted the mirror somewhere in the house, so now the mirror's on the wall across from the fireplace, so you can see the fireplace in the mirror. And we took that screen that had been down here, and we put it on top of the mantle. It was far too pretty to just be a fireplace screen, and they never burned anything in the fireplace anyway. So I think it looks much nicer. See, that's when you think out of the box. Where else could this go besides where it belongs? Here's another view of that. Accessories, tables, mantles. What do we do? Where do we start? What do we use? Well, they need to be individual. I mean, they have to reflect you, and they have to tell a story. But most often you start with the mantle or the coffee table, because those are kind of the focal points. Keeping in mind, if there's a coffee table in the family room, the accessories can't be too tall because it blocks the television. Think of the colors of your accessories. Maybe there's a theme. Maybe there's all of them are the same shape. I had a client who had a lot of glass orbs that were all the same shape. So we put them in a display on a sofa table, but we used some books to raise some of them so they all didn't look like little soldiers in a line. But go around your house and see what you have. You'd be surprised what you'll find. And don't forget about adding the texture. We all think of texture as something you can feel, but texture is also shiny. So think about adding something shiny or reflective to your accessories. Shop the house. This client, when we did this room initially, all that was here was this chicken picture. And people comment like to me, well, why would they put that chicken picture in that gilded frame? It doesn't match. Well, technically it does because it's an oil painting. Oil paintings traditionally are put in wooden frames, whether they're gilded or not. They're usually substantial frames. But going through the house, we found another chicken picture, which unfortunately you can't see. This chicken lamp was in another room, and in her kitchen cabinet, bottom cabinet, not even on display, was this beautiful white rooster. She didn't even know she collected chickens until they all ended up in the same room. All things she liked that she never noticed before because they weren't together. You want to put big on big and little on little. And you want to vary the heights so there's something interesting. You know, highs and lows always look much better than a row of things all the same size. And odd numbers usually work well. Now, if you have a piece of paper, I will give you my cheat sheet for accessories. You want to create the highs and lows. And so to do that, you can add books. You want to think of odd numbers, maybe a triangle shape, like 3 objects that forms a triangle. But if you're really, really stuck, I want you to think of something round, something square, something green, and something interesting. Now that's 4 things, I realize, but I'll show you in just a minute some examples. Most people put the coffee table in the middle of the room and then accessorize it, but nobody can use it because they can't reach it. Check those decorator magazines. That's what you'll see. The coffee table floating in the room with a mirror over the fireplace. Here's my theory. We have round, we have square, the tray and the books, we have green, and we have interesting. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, basically 5 items on this table. Now, when I refer to green, I don't necessarily mean it has to be a plant. To me, something green means it once had life, because to me, it adds life to the room. Here's another example. We have flowers, but we have rounds, we have squares, we have greens, and then there's 2 interesting things that catch your eye is this little ivory duck, and then the knitting needles in this little vase. It's that thing that draws you in so that you pay more attention than just walking past it. Round, square, green, and interesting. Now this one's a little trickier. We do have round, and we do have square, and we do have green. This is a plaster Paris artichoke. But I said green should be something living, so maybe it's the elephant. So we still have round, square, green, and interesting. Putting your accessories on a table, on a tray, on your coffee table, makes it real easy if it's in the way of the television viewers, is to pick it up and move it. Now, this one doesn't have a lot of angles or triangles other than it's formed in a triangle. We have a lot of squares, but we do have this piece of coral, which is round and also very interesting to look at. Think about all the things in your house. Put them on your dining room table. Look at them and see what you can do with them besides putting one here and one there. But this is so, so wrong. I think I got this out of a magazine, but I'm not sure. I know it wasn't in a house I've been in. There's way too many things on this coffee table. Now, true, they have rounds and they have greens and they have interesting, but it's all too tall. So you can't have a conversation with anybody in the room. Plus, there's nowhere for me to put my wine glass. And that's important. So think about entertaining. What are you going to do with people? Just have them hold their coffee cup in their lap? Think about the function of that coffee table and give them some room so they can put things down. Here's another one. We have some rounds. So we have some squares. Even though these are fake flowers, they once could have been alive. And then this interesting is this tiny little shell on top of these tiny little books, just tucked over there in the corner. And yet this whole thing, if you're real careful and not knock the candles over, you could pick up and move away if you were entertaining. Now, mantles are getting to be a challenge. I don't know what builders have in their minds, but they make these really narrow mantles, which doesn't allow you much space to put anything on. Now, these pictures are blurry because I took them at people's homes and they didn't know I was taking them. Just for examples of kind of what not to do or what could look better. All these accessories are spread out, and even though this might have been handmade, it's tiny and it's floating above the mantle. Now, here's the issue with the TV over the fireplace. I'll go on my mini rant. It's a big black hole over a big black hole. And you pay for this beautiful fireplace, and then you don't even appreciate it. There's another mirror doing nothing. Now, this one has potential because we have these highs and lows, and all that has to happen is all of these have to move in closer to this piece of art to make it more interesting, instead of looking like they're going to fall off the sides. Mimic what's in the art. Now, I'm not real fond of these artificial leaves that have that purple green look, but that's what was in the house. But it mimicked the colors that was in the artwork. And my story is that this lady was walking along the riverbank and noticed all these beautiful leaves. See, it's telling a story. This one is perfectly symmetrical. And what that means is if you drew a very straight line down the middle, it would be a mirror image. Exact same things on each side of the mantle. It's very interesting in a formal room. But this has interesting things. We have three things over here forming a triangle, not just one dog, or one candlestick and one candlestick. Asymmetrical is a little more interesting to look at, and it's a little more easy to create. Just by shoving the artwork to one side and adding something else, it stops you and makes you say, well, look at that. It's not centered, but it's interesting. Now, this one tells a great story because this I think of as the lantern that's probably near this doorway. These greens represent all the flowers and greens going up to the door. These brown boxes mimic the stairs. And then we have these cute little birds. All of this was in her house. Putting it all together make quite a statement. Talking about highs and lows, so it doesn't get boring. It's not a straight line. Ned Berkus, when he would be on the Oprah show, I remember him saying once that he hates going in rooms that have a horizon look, which means there's all furniture and then there's all wall, and there's nothing in between. Two are hung, one is leaning, and some color is added. And some light, because this room had no can lights at all and one lamp. So we added a lamp to the mantle. These are very thick wooden frames, so they naturally stick out from the wall. But all of them are hung, but this one. And then we added that little bit of life down here, which these leaves kind of mimic the leaves that are in the piece of art. And if you look at this mantle, it has so much potential. There's so many things that could be rearranged on this mantle to give it a different look. If we were in a real room with live people and a blackboard, we would experiment with this and see what we could do with it. But here's what I want you to think about. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's about you, it's about your home, it's about your comfort. And is the room for real life? And does it tell your story or your family's story? And you have nothing to lose by trying it and pushing your furniture around, putting art on different walls. Take all the art from your living room and put it in the bedroom, or vice versa. And what do you have to gain? Well, What you have to gain is a whole new look of a room, which people will come in and think you bought things. Did you redo the whole living room? Nope, I just rearranged it. And don't be afraid to ask for help. There are many redesigners and stagers that specialize in the art of furniture placement and how to hang art and where to put accessories and help with color. And we're not talking about designer and decorator prices because we're not making money selling you things. You know, I'm not going to, most stagers and redesigners don't go to the merchandise part and buy a $3,000 sofa and turn around and sell it to you for $4,500. So if you need help, ask for it. The cheapest way to change a room is with color. And it does all of these things, but we don't have time tonight to go into color. So maybe we'll do another presentation, maybe even live, and talk about color. But I'll give you a sneak peek. I did my research. Here's the colors for 2022. This is Sherwin-Williams. Keep in mind, it's a blue-green, very warm blue-green color. This is Deluxe Paint. It's a blue, but very soft, like we really are looking in the sky. PPG, it's a green. So there's lots of blues and greens coming in as the color of the year. The grays are going away. Cilantro, much stronger green. Breezeway by Behr, I think is a beautiful color. It's soft. It could go in any room. And even though it's got, you know, that teal kind of undertone, it would go with anything. There's another green by Glidden, Guacamole. And Pantone, I find very interesting because Pantone's colors last year were a gray and a very bright yellow. And this year, their colors that they're putting out in furniture and art and accessories are called baby's breath. Much more subtle, but still warm. I'm not doing gray anymore. So I think I made it fit into my hour, but now I'm open for questions. Anybody, unmute yourself, raise your hand, put it in the chat. Any questions at all? And if you want, I think Colin can stop recording so you don't have to feel embarrassed that your voice will be recorded.